Welcome back to Beyond the Helmet. That's hashtag BTHpod if you're following on social media. I'm your host, Steve McGrath, and today it is my joy to be joined by none other than former 8-year NFL wide receiver and someone that's making a difference at USD, and that's University of San Diego, none other than Greg Camarillo. Greg, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Steve. Happy to be here with you and looking forward to our conversation.
I appreciate you taking the time. Obviously, we can see from the backdrop that you're a busy guy. Maybe double dipping a little podcast work while in the office. So I'll try to not take you away from all the student athletes that I'm sure are so desperately needing your help. Do you mind just talking about what you're doing today and just what is life like now for you?
Yeah. I got a few things going on. So, the professional life and the personal life. Professional life, this is my 7th year working in student athlete development. So I'm at the University of San Diego working with student athletes doing counseling, teaching, and life skills career prep. So, trying to make sure that our student athletes are well-rounded and ready for life after graduation. Personally, I'm married, got a spouse at home with 3 little girls also, 8, 6, and 4. And they keep me happy and busy as well.
I'm sure very busy, if nothing else, very busy. Now, there's so much, someone like you that played at a professional level, not just for a little bit either, I mean, nearly a full decade. When you are talking to kids, and I say kids, but, 20-something generally, when you're trying to prepare them for what life is like, that harsh reality when they're no longer playing a sport and they're no longer in college, and this is such a vague general question, but I mean, what sort of immediately jumps to mind as to things that you saw were a hard transition for you, but also what's some of the best, most important things you can take from this whole college student athlete experience that should allow you to be successful no matter what you do afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one, the first one that comes to mind is identity. If your whole identity is based on your sport, well, when you remove that sport, you're going to lose a lot of your identity as well. So trying to develop athletes outside of their sport. And that doesn't mean take away from developing inside of your sport. Absolutely. Pour your energy into your sport. That's your passion. That's your grind. That's your opportunity. But you should still be doing things outside of that make you a more well-rounded person and allow you to fall back on those experiences once the sport is over. And then, athletes, the grind of a regimented schedule all the time, having class, practice, class, studying, wake up and do it all again. And suddenly that's gone. That's a hard thing to cope with. So, there's so many different facets of why that transition is difficult. But the beautiful thing about college is that there's opportunities to develop yourself outside of just the classroom and practice. You just have to be intentional about getting it done.
I love the word intentional. I think that hits the nail right on the head. There's so much to do there, but I wanted to just bring up name, image, likeness. Obviously brand new. Is that something in what you're doing in helping student athletes? Is that something that all gets brought to the forefront of any conversations that you're having?
No, it's not my world at all. But I am super glad that the NCAA is finally getting there. It has been unfair. It has been unfair for student athletes that are incredibly talented in a particular field, and they've been too limited in the fact that they couldn't capitalize off of that. And now they get to, and it doesn't take anything away from the university. It doesn't take anything away from their student athlete experience, but it allows them to be like any other human being in America and capitalize off of their talents, in which they should, because they're incredibly talented human beings.
Absolutely. Just like if I'm their roommate or across the hall from them, and I can have my own YouTube channel, well, why can't they? I mean, just at the most basic level, it seems pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I did want to follow up on something you had mentioned earlier, and that's in a sense ego, but the identity.
Yeah.
Obviously now you're in a place where you can help guide the next generation through it. But while you're going through your own NFL career, how aware were you of just that idea of, hey, this is a thing that I do, it's not who I am? Was that always something that was at the forefront, or did you have to develop that?
You know what? I slightly disagree in the fact that being a football player was part of me. I was a football player. I, to this day, am an ex-football player. And you know, if you look in my corner right there, I've got the helmets of all my teams. I've got my football cards up. That part of my identity it's there. It exists. It always will. But, you know, I heard somebody say, you know, oh man, I might mess this up. You did what you did because of who you are. What you did didn't make you who you are. So you were a football player. You are a football player. Your identity is that of an athlete because you're exceptional at this, and this. You know, you've got great work ethic. You're very disciplined. You're a hard learner. You can carry those things with you. So when you're done playing your sport, what made you really good at that sport can make you really good at something else. And so it's okay for you to be your sport. You just can't have all of you be your sport.
And that's a much better way of putting it. Much more nuanced than what I had thrown out there.
All good, all good.
So, yeah, I mean, you play for so long, you see so many guys, and I think it's fair to say that many, maybe not most, but obviously a large handful of former athletes, I guess we can stick to just football, they don't necessarily find anything after the sport, whether it's for any number of reasons. But ultimately, do you think it's fair to say that most people just didn't find something that they wanted to really pursue? Or was it mostly those guys getting caught up on that identity part of it?
Yeah. Well, there's so many different components that it's hard to narrow it down to just one. So I can speak on my personal experience. And one of the hardest things was at the age of 30, when I retired, thinking, you know, have I peaked? Will I ever have the same passion for something again? Will I ever get the same excitement out of something again? You know, playing in front of 80,000 people with millions of people watching on TV. The president of the United States, Barack Obama, announced my name on TV. Like, these are amazing life experiences. And it gave me anxiety to think, you know, at 30 years old, how am I going to live the next 50, 60 years and never match up to that again? And so that was a hard pill for me to swallow. Where am I going to find that passion? Luckily, I had a great support team in my family and my wife. You know, I just had my first daughter, so I was able to pour my energy into that. And then I went back to school knowing that it's something that I could put my energy into, but also just as importantly, and this, you know, I'm sure a psychologist could have a feel, tell people that I was putting my energy into something. Because, you know, when somebody asks, well, what's next? And you're like, I don't know. That's a tough pill to swallow for a very driven person. You know, your whole life, at least my whole life, I always had something that I was putting my energy into, and to suddenly not have anything, it was a shot to my ego to tell somebody that, you know, what, Greg, what are you doing? Shit, I'm not doing anything. And that was an empty feeling. And that, combined with how will I, you know, replicate the last decade of my life, it kept me awake at night, you know, and it bothered me.
Totally. I want to say who, but I'm sure I will misattribute this quote. So I will just say a former guest said something to the effect of part of that identity problem, the equation, if you will, it's not just for you, but also when, to your point, if you don't know how to tell someone what you're doing and how they did, then now you're just this thing that's a question mark. So when you can't help sort of realign, and it's not the general public, but, you know, it's your friends, your family, sort of what you're doing and who you are. It's
shout out to your former guest for that. That's spot on. So your entire life, everyone wants to talk about football or the sport that you're playing. In college, it suddenly becomes a bigger part of the equation. They're going to ask about football first and your major second. Once you hit the pros, it is literally all of your conversation. Every family member, everyone around you, everyone that you meet in public wants to talk about football because it's cool. You're in the NFL. It's exciting. It's what people watch. It is that's okay. That's fine. But suddenly that's gone. You know, people aren't asking you about your next season because there is no next season. And then for me, it was the experience. I was really proud to have found a next career. I was proud to be an academic counselor for student athletes. And so people would say, hey, Greg, what are you doing now? You know, I'm an advisor at USD. Their response would be, oh, And then the conversation would move on, where I'm used to, oh, that's so cool. You're a wide receiver. Let's talk about it for an hour. And so it was another hard thing to swallow that, here I am proud of my career. No one's interested in it. No one cares about it. And it was just, another shot to the ego. And I know that's something that I can control in theory, in my own world, as well as I don't necessarily need that extrinsic validation, but it was just something that was part of the transition. I needed to learn to find my own value from myself, from my coworkers, from my immediate surroundings, because I had to replace years and years and years of, oh, that's amazing. You're a football player.
It's almost like you're getting treated like it's a fall from grace for having a new thing to do. It's just such a strange phenomenon that I am sure most people can't really relate to.
Yeah, and I don't say it trying to say, oh man, pity me for losing you. I say it just to provide perspective of what people experience in their transition. Because there's always someone who, oh, you made millions of dollars, why are you complaining? Just trying to paint a picture of what athletes experience in their transition.
Definitely. And for the record, I think it was Mike Carney or Joe Hawley that said it, one of the two. So hopefully I'm right there. But the whole millions of dollars idea that pro athletes make, I did want to, and I know this is jumping to the heart of your football career, but at one point, I believe you'd called it the ACL was the greatest life lesson in don't be greedy. Man.
Yeah.
Do you mind just explaining the story of how you were able to secure a contract extension with the Dolphins and how that whole story played out?
Yeah. So I'll start with a little bit of background. I was undrafted, tryout guy, signed minimum contract. So
we should start here because I want to get to that, but to actually give everyone perspective here.
Yeah. So
I believe let's start at Stanford, because how many walk-on punters become NFL wide receivers?
Not very many. I don't know of any others, but I was a walk-on punter, kind of talked my way into becoming a receiver, got better at being a receiver. So I got a scholarship after a couple of years, which allowed me then to extend my, basically redshirt and extend my undergrad for an extra year. So that extra year was huge. I did just enough on the field to get a chance to try out with the Chargers. Took a 3-day mini camp tryout, got a contract to go back to training camp. Again, my only signing bonus at that moment was the pen that I signed the actual paper with. There were $0 attached to it, but I didn't care. I was just excited to be on the team. Practice squad for 1 year, came back to the Chargers the next year, made the team, didn't play as a receiver, just special teams. The final year they drafted two new receivers. So there was no space for me. I got cut and picked up in Miami. So I spent 1 year in Miami on the playing special teams, little bit of receiving, maybe 8 catches or something like that. And then I became a starting receiver just at a time where you finally get a chance to capitalize on some contracts. So they call my agent. They say, oh, no, this is actually Bill Parcells. Calls me into his office. And the whole speech was, hey, we're going to enter contract negotiations. Basically said, know your worth. Don't ask for too much money. And so I was just excited. Sure, whatever you say, buddy, let's get this going. So my agent and the Dolphins are going back and forth. And the Dolphins at that time was like the hardest grind of a team I'd ever been on. Like we busted our ass in practice daily, like grind, like games were almost easier than practice because of how hard they made us work. And so I'd been a starting receiver. I'm looking at like 4, 5, 6 weeks, and I'm catching 5, 6 balls a game, like feeling good. And we reach a point where my agent's like, you know what, we can get a little more money out of them. And I'm like, hey man, I've never signed a signing bonus. I've been playing minimum contracts. Just wrap this thing up. I want to get paid before I get hurt, because I thought, I'm going to get hurt in practice. So sign a contract. I get through Wednesday practice. I get through Thursday practice. My agent calls me. He says, they got your contract ready. Go sign it. So I walk upstairs. I sign the contract. I get $1 million signing bonus, and I am ecstatic. Like, this is the coolest thing that's ever happened to me, man. And I like, it was all years of hard work accumulating to like paying off, literally paying off. And I thought it was awesome. We're playing the Patriots that week. So I signed a contract Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we play the Patriots on Sunday. I get a touchdown early in the game, and I'm thinking to myself, I signed this contract. You don't ever want to be a failure and not live up to the number. I get a touchdown right away. This is great. A quarter later, I blow my ACL out. I can no longer play that year. I got to have surgery. I'm doing rehab the whole offseason. And I think to myself, the lesson of I could have been greedy and tried to hold out for a little bit more money. But I said, you know what? Enough is enough. Let's sign this contract. And 3 days after signing my contract, I blow out my knee. So that money's guaranteed. That signing bonus was guaranteed. They were invested in me, and I got a chance to recuperate and come back and start again the next year. Whereas if I had not signed that contract, they probably, and this is speculation, but probably would have cut me right then, sent me to go do my rehab somewhere else, might have never played in the NFL again, definitely wouldn't have come back and been a starter anywhere. And so that lesson of not, knowing when enough is enough. Be happy with what's given to you, and don't keep pushing for more. Don't keep asking for more, because literally my life would be totally different. I wouldn't have the house I'm driving, I wouldn't, live in the house I'm in. I probably wouldn't have the career I'm in, all because I didn't get greedy and I signed a contract that was waiting for me.
Is this 09 or is this the end of 08?
08.
Okay. So just for a little more on the story here, when's the last season you played in Stanford?
2004. I joined the NFL in 2005.
So, I mean, basically it's you busting your tail for 4 seasons to be in a position where, you do that. So yeah, I want to make that as a point, because it's like, by the way, maybe you should have been in sales. What punter talks their way into being a receiver? But you go from not some highly touted high school prospect that's a receiver. You work your way into a position of getting a tryout in the NFL while at college, and you are able to parlay. I mean, it's a pretty incredible journey. Is there anything you can attribute to, whether it's while you're at Stanford, how you were able to go from, and obviously you played high school football. It's not like you had no talent or experience, but to get yourself in a position, to get on an NFL radar.
Yeah. A few things. One is just old fashioned hard work, and I don't want to act like I created all those opportunities on my own, because I didn't. There were a lot of people along the way that provided me with opportunities, but a lot of that is because they saw me working hard. Hard work and preparation for opportunity. So there was an opportunity my freshman year as a walk-on. The coach wasn't happy with the senior punter, gave me 2 punts in practice to try to become then the starting punter. And I would have been a walk-on as a true freshman on a team that went to the Rose Bowl the year before. So this opportunity was amazing. I hadn't been practicing my punting. I wasn't ready for the moment. I shanked 2 punts. He sent me back to the sideline, and I lost at that moment an opportunity that could have been my only opportunity to play in a college game. Fortunately, more opportunities came about. But early on in my career, I learned the value of being ready for an opportunity when it creates itself, or when you create one, I guess I should say. And so that failure ingrained in me that lesson that I need to be ready when an opportunity comes. So that's what stuck with me in the NFL. I got a chance to try out in a mini camp. I capitalized on that opportunity. I got a chance to play special teams. I capitalized on that opportunity. Whatever you need from me, coach. If you need me to go try to run into a 300-pounder, I may not work, but I'm going to give it a try. And then in Miami, I got a chance to play wide receiver. And it was a season where we had lost 13 games in a row. And going into the game, I had 1 catch for 2 yards. That's my career right there. And then I was given an opportunity to go out there and try to win a game. I ended up having 3 catches on the same exact play and the game-winning touchdown. And because they gave me that opportunity, and the lesson I had learned before, I was 100% prepared for that opportunity and capitalized on that opportunity. And that's what kind of springboarded my career forward and allowed me to then become a starting receiver and earn more opportunities along the way. And all because of that one failure early on taught me that lesson. You're going to get an opportunity. Make sure you're prepared for it.
And I love how you just glossed over the touchdown catch like it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that touchdown catch springboards, the next 100 catches that you have. That moment
absolutely.
basically solidifies you being a legitimate wide receiver. The team at 0-13, potentially the first team to ever not win a game in a regular season. You make the play to win the game. Ed Reed's so close to being able to intercept the ball, but nope, just just a step or a quarter of a second short. What's it like for you though? Obviously you accomplish stuff after that, but in terms of how an average fan looks at your career, I'm sure they think of that catch.
Yeah.
Is it? Do you mind that happens? That people remember you for one specific play,
fun.
or is it like, hey, they remember this play?
No. So if you ask a Dolphins fan, what's your favorite Camarillo memory? Obviously, that's going to be it because first of all, the Dolphins have a lot of diehard fans. It is a strong fan base. And two, if you were still paying attention after 13 losses, you were a true fan. And so it's fun to just be part of that memory, for fans to say, oh man, I stuck through that terrible year. And, I remember that catch. It was awesome. We were going nuts. So it's fun to relive that memory because it was a big part of my life. And then to be honest with you, it's not my favorite catch. My favorite catch was as a Miami Dolphins starter playing against my former team and friends in the Chargers and scoring a touchdown in that game. But it's just, you look back in your career and you have fond memories, and it's fun to have one that I can share with fans.
Oh, totally. So when you think about getting to a place where, as an NFL starter, again, 2 back-to-back 50+ yard, catch seasons, nearly 600 yards in both of them. Was there anything specific about your time when you first get to Miami that first year, or maybe it's when you are grinding it out with the Chargers that was there any person or coach in particular that really stands out for you as sort of taking you as this fringe NFL guy that didn't get a lot of reps in college, actually getting you to the
lots of them actually, but two that really come to mind. One is James Lofton, a Hall of Fame wide receiver. So he is a former Stanford guy. His son was on my team at Stanford, so he actually got to watch Stanford games. He is the sole reason that I got a shot in the NFL. He is the one that gave me a tryout with the Chargers. So I owe everything to him. And unfortunately, we're still friends. And I don't know if I've told him, how much I appreciate that opportunity because it changed the trajectory of my life. And then also having him as a coach. So he was my coach for 2 seasons, 3 camps. So one, to learn from a Hall of Famer. So clearly whatever he did worked really well, but then also to learn from a very smart coach. It taught us study skills, how as a wide receiver, particularly me as a backup wide receiver, how do I study this offense so I can be prepared for those opportunities? So that it was amazing to have him as my first coach. Without that, I probably wouldn't have grown the way that I did. So that was coach number one that was a huge help. Cam Cameron was my coach at the same time, offensive coordinator for the Chargers at that time, that had a lot of belief in me and gave me other opportunities. And, that relationship that we developed in San Diego when he became the head coach in Miami and I got cut, that's the guy I contacted. I shot him an email, just letting him know I was cut. And, I'd love to play for him. He gives me a call in the morning and 24 hours later, I'm on a plane to Miami to become a Dolphin. So, those 2 coaches are responsible for my opportunities, and I owe a lot to them. And they'll say, Greg, we just gave you a chance. You earned everything after that. But, it works hand in hand. You don't create these things on your own. No one is truly self-made in the football world, but you also got to work hard to get those opportunities.
Oh, totally. But I've had many guys say that, it's coaches don't make players, other players make players.
Ooh,
did you find that, was it, whether it was just to throw a name out there, but like a Keenan McCardle, an older receiver that's there that you were able to take stuff from, maybe not necessarily that, they took you under their wing, but, whether was there, did you find that to be true for you?
Yeah. Oh, I 100%. And not so much like, hey man, come with me, I'm going to show you the ropes, but I've always been a learner by watching. I'm very handy DIY, a hammer and screws kind of guy. And I learned that from watching my dad. Like he'd do a project, And I just sit there and watch him and then try to repeat it. Same with me with football. You know, someone like Keenan McCardell, where, you know, here's this dude, a proven, you know, Pro Bowl veteran that I get to just watch. I watched everything that he did. I watched how he ran his routes. I watched how he conducted himself in meetings. I watched how he interacted with other teammates, because I knew if I want to be successful, I have a recipe right here in front of me. Like, this guy is proven to be successful. Let me see what it is that he's doing. And so I did that with basically everything that I had. Let me watch and see what has allowed you to be successful, and see if I can pick up pointers for that. The other part of that is going against strong competition. So I learned from watching receivers handle their business and trying to mimic that. Getting a chance to play against high-level competition. So my freshman year in college, you know, I ran scout team, and I went against an All-American safety and Tank Williams. We had several cornerbacks that were awesome, and they beat me up, like literally and figuratively. I'd go out there in cars and they'd just bring the wood and light me up. But, you know, if you have any pride, you figure out a way to start beating that. And I'm not going to act like I beat them all the time, but you start learning techniques. Like, okay, he did that to me. How do I get around that? And eventually you start building that repertoire. So one, being able to watch high-level wide receivers and then getting to play against high-level DBs allowed me to develop some skills.
Yeah, totally. And I actually, even though I threw it a receiver, you know, Quentin Jammer, Drayton Florence, some of the guys that I would imagine that's, you know, just, again, getting to the NFL, because just the level of competition, everyone being so good, I would imagine that it certainly must have helped the whole iron sharpening iron.
Yeah, and especially, you know, getting a chance to be on a practice squad. I was not ready to play my first year. And so being on that practice squad gave me a year to improve. And like, you know, Drayton Florence, Quentin Jammer, guys like that, and learning to try to beat them. You have to figure things out. And that's what allowed me time to develop those skills so I can start getting open.
Definitely. So I just want a quick question about coaches. You know, you've mentioned Cam Cameron, who obviously played a big role in your career, but whether it is, you know, Bill Parcells, because, you know, Hall of Fame figure, you know, coming in to try to, you know, overhaul the culture in Miami with Coach Sperano.
Yeah.
Marty Schottenheimer, of course, being in San Diego. Is there anything that you took away from how the best do what they do?
Yeah,
from a coaching perspective, because you know, it's one thing to be a player and you're in charge of yourself being ready, everything physically and mentally it takes, but it's different when it's a coach and being a leader of men.
Yeah, Marty Schottenheimer, by far the best pro coach that I had, possibly the best coach, like respected through down the line. Everyone on the team had respect for Schottenheimer. And this was late in his career, so he clearly had earned that respect, but just his interactions with human beings. So he said early on, it's something that stuck with me. I'm not going to treat everyone the same, but I'm going to treat everybody fairly. And as a practice squad guy, that resonated with me because he treated me totally fairly. But I also understood, like, you know, LaDainian Tomlinson is on this team. He can get away with a lot more than I can do. And so he gave respect, commanded respect, and earned respect, and was a great leader. And I learned from him, you know, that the importance of getting everybody moving in the same direction. Because, you know, a head football coach doesn't need to be an X's and O's guy. He can be, doesn't need to be. He just needs to get everybody pushing in the same direction. Schottenheimer was amazing at that. Bill Parcells ran his regime on hard work and fear. The fear of losing your job and getting cut at any moment. And so that, I could go into a long aside about this, but in a way that motivates guys to perform because you're scared of losing your job. For me, it stressed the hell out of me. It's the reason I got a receding hairline and got some grays in here, because I'm more of a, you know, just give me the responsibility and I'll put the pressure on myself to make it happen. But sometimes, especially, you know, high money guys need to feel that fear of being cut. And that got a lot of guys moving, like working hard, grinding, big money guys that are working just as hard as everybody else because of that fear that I might not be here tomorrow. We saw a lot of people that weren't there tomorrow, And so, that was his way of motivating. Couldn't say I would continue that, but it worked at some level, obviously, because from '07 to '08, we went 1 win to 11 wins, the greatest turnaround in NFL history. And Bill Parcells was creating the blueprint of that turnaround. And so he did it. So he clearly knew what he was doing.
There's no one way. If that story didn't highlight anything, it's more than one way to get it done. Well, Greg, as we get towards the end here, not to take it down to a lower note, but obviously earlier this year we lost Vincent Jackson, who is someone that you played with, and I know that you were vocal on social media. Not that I want to completely rehash that, but when you think about how some guys have fared in life after football, does it make you reflect at all about how guys are treated or things that should or shouldn't be done? I mean, just in general, and I'm sure this is basically going to be a yearly occurrence on some level.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. When you lose a friend like that, you reflect on your interactions. You reflect on just your journey. And so the reflection is, or the outcome of the reflection is, one, to express gratitude and love for the people that are in my life. I hadn't talked to Vince in years, and wish I'd have done a better job of maintaining that relationship, because relationships can keep guys afloat when things are getting rough. You give somebody a shoulder to lean on. But the bigger takeaway, and this is for all athletes in general, is in sports we're taught to suck it up, hide our personal problems for the benefit of the team, but particularly in football. If you have a personal issue, suck it up. We got to go win a game. That doesn't work in real life. That works fine if it's an ankle injury. That works fine if it's a hamstring. That doesn't work with mental health issues. And so to be okay with not being okay, and to tell your friends that, to reach out to a buddy and say, you know what, I need you right now. Or, you know what, things aren't so good right now. Let's go grab a beer. And I know that's not a good example for Vince's situation, but just that camaraderie. And so the reflection is, I tried my best to reconnect with guys and remind them that they matter to me, and that, they're a big part of my life. And the second part is, if I'm going through something, let people know. And if they're going through something, let me know. And that's all right, man. We got to be okay with ourselves to admit when things aren't going well.
Definitely. Well said. Well, Greg, I have a little thing called the gauntlet for you. Got a couple quick hitter questions. I'd love to get your reaction on a couple things. First, what's most important in today's NFL? Is it having the number one offense or the number one defense when ultimately it comes to winning a championship?
Number one offense, no doubt about it. The rules are designed for offense, and we're seeing scoring go up. We're seeing offense go up. And to go even further, big play offense is the most important thing.
We've seen what a difference, how Kansas City looks when that big play isn't there. All of a sudden, they're pretty human.
Yeah, really. Yep. I mean, it all starts with an offensive line. It's hard for me to say that as a receiver, but without no line, you can't do anything. But big plays in the NFL today are the most important thing.
Can't, and the Eagles game going on right now would support that. They can't get a third down play to save their lives. Players or scheme, which is most important?
Oh, man, that's a great question. The gauntlet has already got me stuck.
Well, you're only stuck because there's no right answer.
It's like the chicken and the egg, man. Exactly. So a good scheme without players doesn't do anything, but good players without a scheme doesn't do anything. Oh, in pro football, you got to have talent first. In college, you can get away with a scheme. In pro football, you got to have talent first. So, yeah, players first.
All right. Now, was there a pregame ritual that you had to stick to?
Yeah. So I took, there's a lot of them, but I took the early bus, had to get there early, get my ankles taped early, use the bathroom early before the big guys got a chance to get in there. I would go out on the field super early and just walk around and take in the environment, because every game that I played, I was like in awe that I had made it to the NFL. Like, holy, like I'm about to go play in front of these stands. Like I used to, like, it was my favorite was my first game in Lambeau Field. Like I used to watch Brett Favre playing here, and here I am about to play a game. I'd put my headphones on just so no one would talk to me. I'd go sit in the corner and just reflect on my journey to get there. It was my expression of gratitude and my, a reminder to myself, let me go get out there and grind, because the grind is what got me here.
And when you were in Minnesota and you were on the same team, did you have to do a similar sort of thing?
I did it with every team in every place. I would just go sit down and just be in.
I just meant because Brett Favre was on the team with you.
Yeah, he'd be right next to me when I'd be looking around like, oh, I used to watch you. Now you're warming up with me.
Right. And speaking of Favre, I mean, just a quick list here: Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, Brett Favre, Donovan McNabb, Trent Green, Cleo Lemon, Chad Pennington. You caught balls from a number of guys. Who threw the best one?
Chad Pennington, without a doubt in my mind. This dude threw.
Really?
So I went in 2009. I went 50 catches and 0 drops, and that's, I mean, I take pride in having good hands, but that's more of a testament to the type of passes that were being thrown to me, because you couldn't drop a Chad Pennington pass. He threw it like perfect timing, perfect placement, not that hard. That dude, man, it was an honor to play with him, and it's like a receiver's dream to catch those kind of passes.
All right. What now? Not that you wish you had done anything differently, but in a perfect world, was there ever one player or one coach you just would have wished you had the chance to play with?
Ooh, that's a good question. Not really. I mean, I got a chance to play with some pretty fascinating people. Those quarterbacks that you mentioned. Spent like a month with Randy Moss, which was an adventure. I think I got a pretty good ride out of the people I was in and around. Guys like Ricky Williams was an amazing teammate to be in and around. No, I think I enjoyed it, and there's no one that I was like, you know what, I needed to play with that guy.
Sounds like someone that's fulfilled with their career.
Yeah, I mean, any receiver should say Tom Brady, but because I played against him and lost against him so much, I don't like him. I respect him, but I don't like him, so I can't put him out there.
To be fair, growing up in New England, I knew who you were because we saw you twice a year. That was something that was ingrained in me.
Yeah.
Now, last question. I think it's the best one to end on. Just given everything you've been able to do and are still doing in life outside of being a pro athlete, what's the best piece of advice that you'd give to a young 17, 18-year-old kid as to, how to live your best life, get the most success possible?
Yeah. There's a quote that I love is, if opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. So if you're cruising along in your life and you feel like opportunities haven't come your way, go create one, go find one, go work hard to get one. And I know it's not that simple. Like, you can't just suddenly create your own opportunities, but the mentality to me is hard work is going to create that opportunity. And like I said earlier, I learned a lesson early on: be prepared when that opportunity comes. Hard work will create that opportunity. Preparation will allow you to take advantage of that opportunity. So that quote always stuck out: if opportunity doesn't knock, build a door.
I love it. And I think it builds right off of something you said earlier about living intentionally. I think that, you build that door when you know what you want. You got to be moving in a direction, not aimlessly.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, to wrap it up, I have you at Catch Camarillo on Twitter. Are you still doing Two Pros and a Joe podcast?
I am. Yeah. So got a podcast going just, during the pandemic, wanted to connect with some guys. Got a radio guy and a former teammate, Marcus McNeil, just to talk football and give our stories, our perspectives. And it's been a lot of fun to connect with those guys, and, hopefully some listeners will check it out.
And is there anywhere else people can follow you?
That's about it. I'm getting my TikTok game up, joined that recently. But Instagram is more just for personal stuff, posting pictures of my kids. Twitter is where I reside for the football world.
Here you go. Well, Greg, thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate you sharing your insights.
Yeah, my pleasure.